Well, you'd have to not be paying attention not to know that home prices have been skyrocketing in this country throughout the pandemic. And as it gets harder to break into the market, more parents are gifting down payments to their adult children. This, though, of course, perhaps even longer term, could lead to disputes. So if you're actually going to embark on this, what do you need to know? Let's bring in Kevin Kaspers, family lawyer with Shulman Partners. Thanks so much for joining us. And obviously, I guess we could start with the word even gift, what that means to certain people. I mean, how clearly does a family have to spell out exactly what's happening here as the money goes from one hand to the other?
Well, our position is that it should be spelled out explicitly, and I think that's the problem that we're starting to see, where parents have not done that, or even between the parties receiving the money, they haven't come to a mutual understanding. So from our position as family lawyers, we think that the intentions as well as the understanding of the funds being given, how they are being received, need to be explicitly laid out in an agreement of some sort.
When I think about what a down payment looks like now, given the state of the Canadian housing market, it is a sizable amount of money. Are we talking about a verbal agreement here? Are we talking about the need to codify it a little bit more, something in paper, something that's signed?
No, that's right. It's absolutely needs to be some sort of formalized written agreement. The discussions as to the intentions of the gift or loan and how the parties, what the parties' understanding can, by all means, be an oral discussion. But once that meeting of the minds happens as to how this money is being received and the reason for it being given, that absolutely should be formalized to protect both the parties and the givers, whether it be parents or family members' intentions for the future.
When I think about the relationship, too, that you have your child that you're willing to give the sizable amount of money to, but that child may have a partner who you may or may not like and who may or may not remain their partner for life. That seems to get tricky as well.
Absolutely. And if the giver, the parents or the family members, are giving that money with the intention that it is specifically for their child and not the partner, that has to be made explicit both in their communication to the child and their partner, and by way of formalizing agreement if they want those intentions to be respected should the relationship or marriage break down.
So you can take all these precautions sort of heading into the arrangement. What disputes have you seen in your practice? What is coming up considering the state of the housing market, and is it becoming more frequent?
I think it's coming to a head because of the state of the housing market for so long. Perhaps, 10, 20 years ago, this started to become a more common trend. And because of the housing market, the bubble obviously has not burst despite speculation over all that time. And parents, family members were loaning funds so their children could come into this type of market. And now we're seeing those relationships or marriages breaking down, and the intentions and understanding has not been formalized. And that's where the dispute starts to happen, where it's not explicit, and the child, for example, that received the funds is saying this was intended only for me, and the partner is saying, well, no, it was intended for both of us, and you have no proof to say otherwise. So that's really the ground for these types of disputes.
It seems, too, that when you're gifting money for real estate, the situation has been for several years, and I'm not a person who believes that home prices only go up forever, but they have been going up. So you might be gifting cash used as a down payment for an appreciating asset. Does that get things complicated as well in terms of what the parents might think their involvement is in this appreciating asset, just beyond a gift?
If you're suggesting that the parents might be gifting on the basis of having some type of interest in the property that's being used to purchase, then that again has to be made explicit by the giver, by the parent loaning the funds or giving the funds, and should be reflected in all formal documents, whether it be an agreement between the child and the parent, or the child, the partner and the parent, as well as how the property is registered. If the parents are expecting a certain percentage interest, the parties can certainly speak to their real estate counsel and have that registered on title so that the parents' intentions and their interest is formalized and respected regardless of what happens in the future.
Kevin, people listening to our conversation might think, oh, it gets so complicated in terms of legal documents and writing things down. And maybe they remember having to sign their name 1,000 times when they bought their own property. How simple can we make any document of this just to sort of lay out the ground rules? Does it have to be overly complex?
No, absolutely not. I mean, there's a real knee-jerk reaction when you mention perhaps prenuptial agreement or cohabitation agreement. It usually has to come up at a time when things are good, and parties are entering into a marriage or about to live together as part of their relationship. So, it's not an ideal time to bring up that subject matter. But as you point out, it does not have to be complicated. So if it is simply dealing with a gift from a family member or parent, it can simply deal with that issue, and the cohabitation agreement or prenuptial agreement can simply address the loan or the gift, the intention of the parents or the giver, and how the parties understand those funds are being received, and quite frankly, what is more specifically, I should say, what are to be done with those funds and how they're to be treated in the case of a breakup of the relationship or marriage.
When it comes to the parents gifting for real estate, my sons are 18 and 16, so this is not a situation I hope I'm going to have to deal with anytime soon. But as I look further down the road, and if I wanted to do this, I'm like, my God, where would I get the money from to begin with? I mean, what are the parents in these situations? Where are they sourcing these funds?
There's no one source. It varies depending on the parents' obvious history, whether they were extremely successful in the profession that they pursued, whether they made very wise investments in their time and have built a fantastic nest egg that allows them to do it. There's no single source that I've, in my experience, seen parents pulling from to provide this loan or gift. I think that parents who have the ability to do so access their funds, whatever the source may be, to assist their children to come into this type of market. They understand that it's difficult, and you certainly find that most of these parents come from a generation of property ownership, so they value that, and that's the reason why they're willing to do that for their children in this market. All right.